Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 87 called Candace. On today's episode, I'm proud to partner with Surrogacy. Surrogacy and egg donation can feel like an overwhelming process at first, but having an experienced agency to partner with you and guide you through the process can make a world of difference. Surrogacy and egg donation has been making parenthood possible for 25 years, bringing more than 2,200 babies into the world. And what sets Circle apart from other surrogacy agencies is that almost half of the staff have personal experience as a surrogate, a parent through surrogacy, or as an egg donor, or has grown their families through IVF or adoption. They are passionate about helping others achieve their dreams of having a baby because they've been there themselves. Circle provides exceptional knowledge and experience, fixed costs and financing, and the highest success rate in the business. Learn more at circlesurrogacy.com and follow them on social media at Circle Surrogacy. Thanks, Circle. Before we get started with Candace, I'm doing a cross promotion today with my friend Allie Levine's podcast. It's called Everything with Allie Levine, and this is her promo. Give it a listen.
This is Everything with Allie Levine, hosted by Hollywood mom, celebrity stylist, influencer, and Bravo reality star, Allie Levine. On this podcast, you'll get a mix of, well, literally everything. From motherhood to fashion, lifestyle to spiritual well-being, all real and raw. Allie interviews celebrities, experts, influencers, entrepreneurs, and so much more. Tune in weekly to be inspired, empowered, and entertained.
Today, I am talking to my amazing friend, Candace Wohl, who is going to tell us about how 10 years of marriage, 2 brain surgeries, and a 7-year battle with infertility has not been easy for her and her husband, Chris. Candace is a huge infertility advocate. She's the creator of the blog Our Misconception, and she was the star of the MTV True Life documentary called I'm Desperate to Have a Baby. She is funny, she is irreverent, she is smart, she's a great friend, and she is now a mom of 2 through surrogacy, and I'm very, very proud to know her. So without further ado, this is Candace's infertility story. Candace, hello, my love.
Hello.
It's so good to talk to you. I can't not be honest and say that this is the second time we're doing this interview because I'm an asshole and I have your previous interview on my desktop of my laptop that took a shit. So it's in computer jail and you've kindly agreed to do this again. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And really, and we talked about this, any excuse to talk to you again is a good,
well, that's
really
how
good
I felt
excuse,
too. I was like, actually, like we had so much fun talking before and I was like, I would love to just like chit chat with her anyway. So
yeah,
here we are, but we are going to talk about your infertility journey and all the stuff that you're doing now. You're such a huge advocate in this space. And I love everything that you're doing. You're working with Resolve, you're doing, writing all this stuff. So we'll get into all that. But if you don't mind, let's start at the beginning. I always want to ask my guests, did you always want to have kids?
Absolutely. I think, well, it's interesting. Some people say, no, I never want to. And then they, obviously end up with like 1,000 and they use birth control and titanium condoms and all these things. And then you have people like me who, when you're a little girl, you envision your life, this white picket fence, it's going to be this house, it's going to be a dog. And then, a couple years later, you're going to get married and it's going to be all wonderful things. And you're going to have a little too much tequila one night and then you'll be staring down at double lines. And that is how it's going to happen. And that was not how it happened. And, it took a long time to, kind of get through that. So
yeah. So tell me about when you started to try. So I know that I definitely want to talk about, you guys were on MTV at one point, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we
so
were,
where did that come into the mix? And can you take me from the beginning so your husband is named Chris, right?
That's right. Chris,
okay.
Yes.
So tell me about you and Chris when you guys decided that you wanted to build a family and what happened.
Absolutely. It was kind of like, it really, I guess our motivation to start conceiving was more like shotgun style, not shotgun style in the fact that we were like, oh God, we got to do this now. But he had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. Mm-hmm. And, we were having fun being married and in a very early stage of our marriage. But all of a sudden, we're this newly wed couple and he has a brain tumor. He's getting ready to have these surgeries and these craniotomies and not knowing whether or not he's going to have his deficits afterwards. And I think when you see your partner struggle and who is in the ICU and when they come to and they can recognize you, and that's a big thing, life gets put into a whole new form of perspective. And so for us, we were like, well, you know what? Let's start a family.
Yes.
Because, tomorrow's not promised. And that was very apparent right out the go.
Right. Can you tell me more about the brain tumor? Like, I know we did talk about this before, so sorry again, but when did he figure it out? What happened?
Yeah, it was crazy. So we were getting ready to head to a Labor Day party, and we woke up that morning and he had what's called a ptosis. So his eye was drooping. He almost looked like he had a stroke. And so his mother is a nurse practitioner, but she was in Afghanistan at the time, serving in the military. So he sent her an email and was like, hey, Mom, what's going on? And she, for some reason, was checking her email at like 3 a.m. in the morning and literally called us from Afghanistan and said, whatever you're doing, stop right now, turn around and go to the emergency room.
Whoa.
This is not good. So that's what we did. And so he went there and immediately the radiologist was like, you know what, I do see something. We're going to go ahead and get you in as soon as possible with a neurosurgeon. We went to the neurosurgeon here in Virginia. And she said, all right, look, this is in a really, really, really hard place. It's in what's called the cavernous sinus area. Mm-hmm. And she was like, and it's growing towards the brainstem. So we were like, okay, that doesn't sound good. This is not good. And so she performed the first surgery and she backed out. And I really applaud her as a provider, because a good provider is humble and they know what their scope of their expertise are. Whoa, and that was her.
So and she was like, I'm not the right person for the job kind of thing?
Absolutely. She pulled out. She said, look, this is, if you imagine like the pie, she was like, I got the crust, but I didn't get the filling.
Whoa.
And so I'm going to back out because I don't want to do any more damage. And at the time, my husband was defending his PhD. Mm-hmm. And so here's where this is a good provider. She said, I'm not going to do anything else until you defend your PhD, because you earned that degree. And I want to make sure that you have that.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah. And then she referred us to another doctor at UVA who visits twice a year. I think he's in Europe, and he specializes in that part of the brain. Mm-hmm. So he came in, he did his job, he did it. It was great. But we came home and Chris he got chemical meningitis from the Durabond that they used.
Oh my God.
So he tanked. And next thing I know, they were debating whether to send us via medevac helicopter or ambulance back to the hospital that he was at, which was 3 hours away. Mm-hmm. After that,
what are you feeling like going through it? This must have been so terrifying.
I was freaking out, man. Like, I was fucking freaking out because, I'm young. We were young. And,
right.
and what's interesting is I think a lot of people will get head naughty at this one point. When your spouse is really weak, you have to put on your big girl panties.
Yeah.
You have to suck it up, buttercup, smile, hold hands, cry when you're in the bathroom when no one can hear because you're scared. Wipe those tears, walk out and say, hey, how are you feeling?
Right. Because how old were you guys?
We were 23 and 24.
Oh my gosh. Babies. Yeah.
Actually, no. I'm sorry. We were 20. We were 25, 26.
Still babies.
Yeah, still babies. Yeah, still very young and scared. Young, dumb, and scared.
Right.
And so, anyway, point is they finally fixed everything. He's been tumor free for over 10 years now, and everything is good. But we still have scares here and there. He still has double vision, still has issues, with that. But for the most part, the tumor was resected.
Wow.
But we learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We learned very early, number one, how to deal with a life crisis. And number two, that time is not always on our side.
Yeah.
And so when we started to try to have a baby, that was very much on the front end because we were still burnt. Our hands were still really burnt from dealing with his brain surgeries.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So it kind of fast tracked that part of your life.
Yeah, it did. And you asked about MTV, which is really interesting. So it does tie in. So we started a blog after I think like a year and a half of trying, because it felt like, and we did it from both of our perspectives, because what was interesting is we found that when we were writing, there was a lot that I didn't know that he was going through versus what he didn't know what I was going through. So it was a really good way for us to share perspectives and be able to communicate that. And then also there's not a lot of people who are writing about what both sides were feeling.
Totally.
And more so what the guy was going through. And, not that there weren't a lot of people talking about it, but, I think like the very beginning people at the time were Stirrup Queens. Then there was Jay Palumbo, and then myself, but there weren't a whole lot of bloggers in that space at the time, because this is 2012.
Yeah. Right. So were you thinking like, where are all these people? I know people are going through this. How come nobody's talking about this?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, everybody wants to learn about my lady bits, don't they? Come on, let's talk about this.
Because that's when I was going through it. That was like, and I couldn't find any. I wish I had found your blog. And I've said this to Jay too, who I love. I wish I knew about your stuff, because like it was all happening at that time. And it just like Instagram wasn't really a thing yet, which has been amazing in terms of just connecting people. And it was hard to find really solid, relatable people that were like being totally honest about this stuff, Yeah.
And that's when, so I guess that's how MTV found us, because we were writing about it and we were pretty open. And so the casting producer who, I still work with now, I love her. She found us. And she found us because we had posted on our blog at the time. We were having this like ugly sweater Christmas party, and she said that ugly sweaters is what sold her on us. But yeah, so in the rest was history. They actually filmed us for about a year.
Yeah. So this was on their series called True Life, right? Which was their like docu-series, which I loved. They did a good job with all those.
Yeah. It was such a good series. And what was interesting, oh no, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, do you think anybody listening doesn't know what MTV is? There might be like a younger contingent that's like, it used to be a music video channel, and then they turned into a lot of programming for like not even millennials. I guess it was pre-millennials, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
Anyway, sidebar. Okay.
Yeah, MTV. I want my MTV.
Totally.
Yeah. So, all right. So they followed us for about a year.
Okay.
And on the True Life, and it was True Life. I'm desperate to have a baby, and it was funny because I told them, I said, not the most flattering of titles, but it's not entirely inaccurate either. So
gets the point across.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I asked them. They were following two of us, and one was her first round of IVF, and for me, it was my last. And kind of give just a small amount of background, and we can kind of move into that, later on. But I had developed the beginning stages of uterine cancer. And that last IVF was my doctor saying, "Hey, Candace, we're going to give you one last shot before you need a hysterectomy." And so they filmed us, and it literally was in the same 24-hour period. They went to Chicago, filmed Jenna and Kurt, and filmed their positive beta. and then flew to Virginia and filmed me getting the negative beta.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being on the floor of the bathroom, just sobbing with Chris.
Yeah.
And him holding me. And I remember glancing up and looking at these like two grown men filming us. And they were wiping tears.
Yeah, I'm sure.
From their own face, because they literally got to see the highs and the lows of what a fertility journey could look like. And, they've been filming us for a year, so they knew,
right.
All that we have gone through, all the shots, all the,
So can you back up a little bit and tell me what else had gone down in that year? Like, what round were you on? How many I know you did many, many IUIs and many rounds of IVF, right?
I did. We did 6 rounds of IUI, and this is, I want to take a moment and stop right here. So for the listeners who are doing IUIs and they're going to their OBGYN, this is where I made a mistake, and I think it's really important to kind of learn from other people's mistakes when it comes to this. OBGYNs, they are great for women's health. You pop into the stirrups, you do your thing, and you get your annuals, but they are not fertility specialists.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost a lot of time and a lot of heartache seeking treatment through an OBGYN, through IUIs, and not advocating for myself to go to a fertility doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost time and money through that. And I think, back in that time, there was, a lot of people who were trying to be everything to everyone. And you really do have to go to the people who specialize in that. So.
Yeah. So when did you make a decision to switch and go to a reproductive endocrinologist?
It was after my 6th failed IUI.
Okay.
Yeah. And really it was, because you don't want to go to, you don't want to go to a dentist for a heart problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what it's like. I mean, fertility, a fertility doctor, REI, they know what they're doing. And I should have been going to them at the very beginning. And so yeah, we did 6 IUIs from that point. And then we had, at the time of the show, I was at my 5th IVF transfer.
Wow. So what was the diagnosis? Like, what were they able to tell you about what was going on with you guys?
We were that's a good question. We were unexplained for quite some time. We both contributed to some point, to some extent. Like, my husband's swimmers, they weren't winning any swimming matches anytime soon.
No Michael Phelps there.
Yeah, there was no Michael Phelps there.
Right. Okay.
But, I mean, they weren't non-existent. I mean, he did have some sperm. They were just on the low end. So, I mean, so if he had to wrestle with a cup, he could contribute. It just wasn't a glaring amount of number to contribute. That's all. And for me, so unexplained, and then it ended up being implantation issues with lining. I started getting it's called hyperplasia.
Okay.
I started forming hyperplasia,
Yeah.
and that hyperplasia is what then metastasized into the beginning stages of uterine cancer.
Okay. So had you gotten pregnant at all, or gotten any further than,
I've never been pregnant.
Never.
Never was. Never experienced. Never saw a double line ever.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the MTV show filmed the 6th IVF at that point.
Right. Wow. Okay.
And it was interesting because as soon as that failed, I cried it out. And I feel like this is how we dealt with a lot of things. I cried it out. I had my pity party on the floor. I dusted myself up. We got up. I looked over at them and said, "Hey, there's a bottle of wine, some beer in the fridge. Let's do this thing."
Yeah.
And so I sat it down on the table. I cracked it open. I said, "Who wants to call some adoption agencies today?" And so that's how the next stage hit. I'd already prepared myself, I think, at that point that this was going to be what it was.
You weren't going to be able to get pregnant or carry or any of that.
Mm-mm.
So what was going on with the uterine cancer?
Yeah, right? Then what happened? Oh my God. We had one fucking awesome fuck you uterus party is what we did. Okay. Okay. It was equipped with
I love you.
Oh no, it was amazing. Let me tell you, like my friends were awesome. We had a uterus piñata filled with all the red candies anyone could find. Everybody wore red mustaches and red.
Oh my God.
I had a tampon corsage.
Stop.
Mm-hmm. Then we had these games where, I mean, it was amazing. We threw one hell of a fucking uterus party. And then I had a hysterectomy.
Okay. Wow.
And,
so how old were you then?
I was 28 or 29.
Okay. So what were your emotions like leading up to that?
It's cruel is what it is. You
Yeah.
have somebody who wants to have a child who, we would give this child the world. And I would, oh my God, I would have rocked some pregnancy and maternity where I imagined myself in all of this. I was so excited. And then when it doesn't become an option anymore, when it's no longer an option and when it's no longer what if, you have a choice. You have a choice to sink in that of what could have been, or you switch gears and what can be.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we did. And we made light of it. We were like, okay, I could really be sitting here in a ball crying before I get ready to have my hysterectomy, or I could throw one hell of a party, beat the shit out of a piñata.
Yes.
My uterus sucks.
Yes.
And you know what? And that 2x4 felt so good.
Yes. Beating the shit out of that piñata.
Oh yeah.
Where did you find a uterus piñata? On Etsy or something?
Yeah. It was on
of course.
Etsy. It was amazing.
I would love to put some pictures up of this event if you have them available.
I have a YouTube video too, actually.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, maybe we could link to that or something.
Yes. So yeah. So it that door shut. And it locked, it burned down to the ground. And so I had no other option but to find a new door.
Right.
And so that's what I did. I was like, all right, what's next? What's the next door?
Did you find anybody that had also had this done? Had a hysterectomy, like at such a young age? Like, were you able to connect with anybody else?
I did. I did. Her name is Alex Fox. She's on Instagram too. Instagram and Twitter. And her and I had like parallel journeys in a sense. Okay. Except for she had started surrogacy and then did her hysterectomy, and then I did the opposite. So we were able to swap notes a lot.
Gotcha.
On what happened. So I did have one person that I was able to talk to, but it was young.
Yeah.
You only hear of like your parents' grandmothers and older people having hysterectomy. So I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And I tell you, you want to see a man go white. You have the OBGYN oncologist tell him what will happen if he has sex with his wife when it's not time to, because there's interstitials.
Oh my God.
He would not even like get near me. He was like, "Oh no."
What's the recovery period? Like, how long do you have to?
It's the 6-week recovery.
Okay.
And it's hard. It was hard for me. It was a very difficult recovery. And I had a partial. So my uterus, my cervix, and my fallopian tubes. I still have ovaries. So my ovaries, they're good. They're rocking. But everything else was trash. So they that's what they removed. And so you were down for a while, and you can't lift, and there's just a lot that you can't do. And of course, sex is terrifying.
Right. Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you go. Whatever you're going to say was much better.
Yeah. Oh my God. No. So, sex is terrifying because, there are stitches, there are internal stitches. And so the way that our oncologist said, there are couples that can get stuck together if you don't practice abstinence between a certain amount. We were like, what?
Oh my God.
Come again. Are you just saying this to threaten us? Is this kind of like, if you get out of your bed at night, the boogeyman's going to come from underneath the bed.
Right.
What, are you messing with us? So I don't know if it was just a fear factor thing or whatever the case, but that was that. And then, you had to get used to, intercourse again. And now it's fine. Everything's great.
Yeah.
But then I was not amused. He was not amused. No one was amused.
And then can I ask you too, Candace, what was like emotionally, like as a woman, like when something, when you lose that part of your body, what does that do to you mentally? Like,
so I'll tell you, because it's interesting because for me, you identify as a woman with your internal organs, right?
Right.
I mean, this is what makes me a woman. I am supposed to be able to have a womb to carry a child. And now I don't have that. So now what do I have?
Mm-hmm.
Now what can I add to the table? That was difficult. That was really difficult, but it was harder as we moved into the next stage. And we can talk through that. But at the very beginning with the hysterectomy, I think I was just more relishing in the fact that I didn't have to buy tampons. So that was
a silver
nice.
lining. Yeah.
You gotta find the sunshine in the shit somewhere, right?
Totally. Completely.
But the emotional piece came later.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess let's keep going with the chronology. So you had the surgery, go through the recovery, and then you're starting to explore adoption at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you just adopt, they say.
Yeah, right? So easy.
Yeah, it's easy. We started going through an agency, and this was my angry stage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The 2x4 totally did not help smashing the uterus at the time. I was angry.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry because I had to put a lock on my medicine cabinet. I was angry because I had to put my whole entire finance, personal, everything under a microscope and on paper to prove that I was fit to be a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry because I had to spend tens of thousands. I think at the end of the day, our adoption would have been anywhere between 29 and 30,000 to do this. I was angry. And I think that was just part of the grief to kind of get me through, what the next stage would be. But in that time, we did have 2 potential adoption placements.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, the birth mother miscarried.
Mm-hmm.
And that was tough because, you find yourself consoling her and you're not as much consoling the loss of the idea,
Right. Completely.
And so that was kind of a mental battle that I had to kind of go through. And then, and then we had another potential placement, and the parents of the birth father decided to parent the child.
Right. Okay.
So
but you were like far along into the process with.
We were very much part of the process, and we were starting to do fundraisers and things like that because, although my husband and I, we have good jobs and we had a discount, but that was all depleted by our IVF efforts. And we even had a small cap of insurance to help with treatment. Mm-hmm. But the thing is treatment doesn't always work. And when you've had multiple rounds, it adds up. Yeah. And I remember during our fundraising period, someone said, how can you afford to have a child when you're fundraising to get there?
Oh God.
And
Knife to the heart.
And I said, you know what? You have a beautiful college degree. Did you pay for it in cash? How about that car that you're driving right now? Did you pay for that in cash?
Right.
No, you didn't. Not too many people have $30,000 or $20,000 in hand right there to pay for that.
Yeah.
So back the F up.
Seriously.
So, yeah, really. And I mean, I was called tacky because I was fundraising, but you know what? I gave 0 fucks.
Good.
And I tell you why, because hell hath no fury like a woman who wants a child. And, cost was a barrier. So we had to figure out a way around that. Mm-hmm. And we had so much fun. We did, and it was great seeing all of our friends and family and stuff kind of rally behind it and help. But we did garage sales. Mm-hmm. We did, you name it. We did it. And we raised a fair amount of money. And it was interesting because of that. And because I shared my story and because we talked about it, I remember posting something on our Facebook and saying, hey, we're doing this adoption fundraiser. We'd love, if everybody, if you want to come to support it. And we got a message. I got a message in my direct mailbox, and it was from a little sister of one of my friends. And she said, hi, just FYI, I see that you're fundraising for an adoption. Have you ever considered surrogacy? Because I was a surrogate before, and if you're interested, I would carry for you.
Whoa.
Yeah. And we were like, ooh, my husband and I, we talked about it, and, we're like, I don't know, it seems so out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like this is possible. I'm not Beyonce, although I try to sing like her in the shower.
You are Beyonce.
Yeah, baby.
Wait, this isn't Beyonce?
No, I know. Sorry. My shower concerts would fool you, but
right.
I am not, and I'm not a trust fund baby, so I don't have a rich uncle or anything.
Right. So you're thinking surrogacy is going to be tremendously more expensive than adoption, right?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking this is completely out of reach. There's no way, no how. So I talked to my mom. My mom was adopted, and it was very interesting because she's got MS, she's got multiple sclerosis. So her cognitive thinking skills have really, plummeted over the years, and her ability to kind of like conversate and things along those lines. But, I still just talk her ear off, just nonetheless. And so I was explaining to her the situation, and she really had a moment where it was it was kind of shocking. She said, Candace, this is a no-brainer. You can adopt a sibling. She's like, but you have a bird in hand right now. You have someone who's willing to care for you. You have 2 embryos right now. Mm-hmm. Do it. And I talked to my husband because we were both line in sand, not going to do surrogacy. Mm-hmm. I talked to him about that. He said, well, makes sense to me. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a plan. Didn't know how we were going to do it. But we did it.
Whoa. Okay. And so that's a huge pivot. That must have been hard to you're like,
yes.
But when something happens along your journey like that, you kind of have to just go with it, right?
Yes, it is. And, it's kind of like one of those things that, call it fate, call it Jesus, whatever you believe in, karma. I don't know. Whatever it was for us, it kind of just aligned. It just happened. And we put faith and stock in that. And so it kind of, we followed the lead of what was going on in front of us. So surrogacy was very interesting because I always equate it to football. All right. Because I love college football.
I love your analogies. Okay. I can't wait to hear whatever you're about to say.
Yeah. So, all right. I am that benched player. Okay. I am licking my wounds. I just got sacked. I am now riding pine along with the water boy who has never been able to play to begin with.
Riding pine.
So we're just sitting here, we're watching, and our star quarterback who has the game-winning ball, there's like 30 seconds left in the game. They have the ball. Okay. And all I can do from the sidelines is cheer that person on and hope to God that they don't get sacked, they don't get tackled, and that they make it to the goal for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And that's all you can do. Mm-hmm. All you can do is cheer. All you can do is support that person. You're just as much invested in that game as the person that's playing on or off that field.
Right.
And that ball is all I had.
Right.
And I'm trusting somebody else with the game-winning ball. And that was it. That's all I had.
Love it.
And it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. But you're like the Dr. Phil of infertility. Like you're like analogies. You put feathers on a dog, but that don't make it a chicken.
Right. No, right. Dr. Phil.
He's all those phrases. He
does. He does.
No, I love it. I love the game-winning ball. I love that. That's so true.
Yeah, but it's also it's a mental game too, though. It's so difficult because you asked earlier about the mental piece of it. Like what was it like to lose your reproductive organs, right? Well, for me, it was harder watching someone go through the things that I wanted to experience so deeply. I celebrated, and I was completely in awe when the first double lines I ever saw were from someone else, but they are my double lines, and I shared them with her. Mm-hmm. Surrogacy is a shared experience. Yeah. And so everything you share, but in just a different way. And so with, I remember taking her to Kohl's to buy her some maternity clothes and some flat shoes because she loved to wear heels, which made me nervous. and so
you're like, how about these Birkenstocks?
How about these slippers?
Right.
These like nicely comfortable, shoes.
Totally.
They're flats. Yeah. and I remember being in the maternity section, and she grabs these banded pants and, bounds off to the dressing room, just, excited because she's starting to show. And I remember crying.
Yeah.
Because I was in a maternity section buying clothes for clothes I would never wear.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm buying them for someone else because my body failed me.
Yeah. Oh, that must have been really hard.
And I remember crying the whole way home. And I remember just sending her a check for the rest of the clothes.
Mm.
And she was very understanding. And I really appreciated that. And then I remember just, there's just so many different stages of the gestation and everything that goes on. But, we always tried to do everything. I would send her gifts, and, we'd celebrate every milestone together and do everything I possibly could to make it a positive event. But I will tell you, there is nothing more emasculating as a woman than to be in a labor room and watching someone in pain and crying and just struggling in on your behalf,
mm-hmm.
and labor a child that you cannot do yourself.
Yeah.
And all you can do is hold in those emotions. And while she was laboring physically, I'm laboring mentally
mm-hmm.
in that burden, that I should be there bearing that cross of pain. And instead, I sit here and watch helplessly.
Right. Wow. I've never heard it put that way.
That's hard.
So well said. Yeah.
And so that was the point of my life where it was very clear what infertility has taken away from me.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
In that same breath, I also held her leg while she pushed. And I literally got to see my child born from a different perspective.
Right.
And then the other thing is I pretty much gave my body and Mother Nature the middle finger because I induced lactation. And as soon as she was born, I was able to breastfeed.
What?
Yeah. And that was very fulfilling to me.
Wow. So wait, tell me how that works.
It's called induced lactation.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It is one of those things that, okay, I said, all right, our gestational carrier, she's not being able to sleep at night, and she's, dealing ankles and all these things. I'm going to do what I can to participate in a way, and I'm going to find a way to make this work. And so I read about it. There is a wonderful book called, really looked into it, did some research, and there's a Newman Goldfarb is what it's called, method of, and I used 5 months before our due date inducing. So I was dry pumping, which is awful.
Whoa.
I mean, your nipples go from looking like, they were on fire. All right. Like dry pumping and like cracked and bleeding and all the things before, even had, a baby in my arms. And every 3 hours you wake up and you pump. Like me and my pump. It was just me and my pump.
Wow. So wait, what was that? Sorry, you cut out a little bit. What was the name of the book?
Oh, breastfeeding without birthing.
Wow. This is fascinating. Okay.
Yes. So a great book, really helpful. And now there's way more resources about this than there was then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing is when our first daughter came, I already had a milk stash.
Wow.
So I had frozen milk already available, and that was great. So I was able to, and now granted, I still had a supplement, and I still struggled there, but I was able to provide and breastfeed my first daughter. And it was really healing for me.
That's really, really cool. Such a cool piece of the puzzle too, that I feel like I don't know if I knew about that. I don't remember talking about that with you before. So thank you for sharing that. That's
absolutely
fascinating. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have your baby. You had this first baby.
I do. And when they get older, they are like the absolute worst when it comes to shit not to say to people who are infertile. Like, and I'll tell you why. So this is how this went down. So I now have a 3.5-4-year-old, and she's starting to see all of her little friends who have siblings of their own. And she's like, Mommy, why is your tummy broken? And one of the things that's really important to us is we make it no secret who her gestational carrier is. She sees her. We are very open about the fact that Mommy's tummy was broken. We put her in another kangaroo's pouch. And then, we really try to make it, to let her understand how surrogacy worked for her and how she was brought into the world. So it's on her level. So she was very aware that, my shit was broken. And so I remember being in 5 and Below, of all horrible places to be in at the time. And she was crying because one of her friends has a brother and her has a little brother. And then her mom was expecting again because she was like a Duggar. And so she's like lifting up my shirt. Let me see your broken belly. Let me see it. I know you can work it. Just pray to Jesus. He will fix it.
Oh my God.
I'm just like, oh, kid,
yeah,
you're killing me. And,
right. You're killing me.
You're killing me. And so, I would try to explain it on a level, but it was hard to them.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Completely. But I think being forthcoming about it, it sounds like you guys have been as much as you can, is the right way to do it,
Yeah. So, we had kind of, again, we start talking about it and, I mentioned it a couple times on our blog, maybe we should try to go through an adoption or, what does it look like for us? What are our options? Let's start toying around adoptions. Because let me tell you something, surrogacy wasn't cheap. We're not sure if we can go down that road again.
Right.
And a friend of ours who I'd met in an infertility community, her issues were more genetic issues versus pregnancy issues. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So her oven, completely fine. They're just her buns.
Right.
So, but my buns are great. My oven's broken. So this is like hey, we could work this out.
Right.
And so we started moving through it. And she started getting all the testing, and we did the PGTS testing because she didn't want to go through miscarriage, and I got that. We were all for that, and I didn't have any embryos at the time. Fun fact: you can still go through an IVF stimulation and retrieval without a uterus, a cervix, or fallopian tubes, or any of that. All you need is your ovaries. Also not fun. Because there's really not much of that's like holding them steady there.
Right.
And so that's going on. And meanwhile, it's literally like a pit crew at NASCAR trying to do shots while dealing with a small child in your home because, I have Chris in the bathroom. He's got all the shots laid out.
Right.
And then I dart in, he stabs me in the butt, gets me in the stomach real quick.
Right.
Slap the Band-Aid on it. Yep. Slap the butt and we're out.
Yeah. Quick oil change and back around the track. Yeah, exactly. So wait, Candace, so you had said earlier you had 2 embryos. What happened with the 2? I know one became your daughter, obviously.
One became a daughter. The other one did not transfer. It did not make it.
Okay. So you did a transfer before the second one ended up taking. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so that was the remaining left that ended up for our daughter there. So I didn't have any embryos remaining.
Gotcha.
And so, and I was, older at the time. And so what was interesting is going through an IVF a few years later and going through one without a uterus. And it was painful. It was hard. It was much more difficult, but time flew by much faster because, I'm managing a baby and I'm managing life. And, you don't have as much time to kind of sit and relish in the fact that you're going to be, you got to try to drum up the gumption to take another Pio shot because your ass is on fire.
Right.
There's not much room for that. So I went through all of that. We have embryos now. Calendar day 1 starts for our gestational carrier. We have contracts signed, all systems go. Chris starts having double vision again. So I sent her a message, said, hey, I know this is calendar day 1. just FYI, don't be alarmed, but we're going to UVA. We're going to get we're going to get a brain scan, just make sure everything's good. But I will come back, whatever you need. I'm here for you. Her words, I can't do this. Mm. And that was it. Mm-hmm. She backed out. Wow. We got cold feet. She got cold feet. And I feel for her. You know, my husband was really angry. He was mad. And all my friends were mad. They were like, fuck her. Mm-hmm. How could somebody do that? But for me, that'd be really terrifying for her.
Yeah.
You know, she went through all of this and she was obviously committed. But for some reason, something said no to her.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because I wouldn't want somebody who would have had cold feet, who wasn't in it, to want to go any further.
Completely. But I mean, that's probably like a mix of emotions, right?
It was. And the amount of guilt I'm sure she harvested wasn't great either. And so I feel for her on that one. But I don't feel for the $24,000 we lost.
Oh my God.
So that really sucked.
Yeah.
And I went through depression. You see, the whole fertility journey beforehand, never had any issues with depression. Yeah, I got sad. I had pity party, but I was able to always pick myself up and dust off. Mm-hmm. Here's where I'm going to speak to the people who are dealing with secondary infertility. Mm-hmm. Because now, granted, in my definition, I don't have secondary infertility, but I still have the emotions that kind of come along with it. Mm-hmm. So I just had this huge loss of finance, loss of options, loss of hope. And now I'm depressed. But I still have to put on a smile every single day for my daughter.
Right.
Who I have to make sure is completely unimpacted and who knows nothing about the devastation that I just went through, or knows nothing that, of what's going on. So I would drop her off at school and then cry on the way home. Because that was you only have pockets of time to mourn and to grieve. That's the problem, is you don't have that time to grieve. You have to allow yourself to grieve. And when you have to schedule grief, depression kicks in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so recognizing earlier on that this depression wasn't gonna go away, I seeked help and I got a really good counselor and worked through that.
Yeah.
But I told my husband I went off for this roller coaster. I'm done. I can't anymore. Mm-hmm. And he said his grief and his way to mourn was, well, I want to try one more time. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, here's my parameters. I see you and I'm going to meet you in the middle. By the end of the summer, if we don't have an option, we call time of death of this journey. Mm-hmm. That we're done. We are going to love, embrace, and be at peace with our party of 3. And that is our life. And it is wonderful. And we are happy for it. Mm-hmm. But if this is what you want, then you make the initiative. You find and start doing your outreach. I'll support you. But I'm in the words of Brittany Kane, who's Bella, her husband, said, I don't want to play cowbell. I want to play a mean cowboy bell here. I'm not going to be the front singer.
Right.
I'm just going to be your background singer.
Yes.
And so, damn it, if that a-hole didn't find somebody. And it's so great because you never hear of guys plotting this stuff. It couldn't wait. So this is so amazing. This is the piece of the story that is so funny to me. So my husband's in this workout group called F3. And it's like a nationwide workout group. They sweat and it doesn't matter if it's raining, sleet, or snow. They're out there working out like idiots. I don't understand it, and I commend them for it, but it's not my bag. And he's in this group with these guys, and one day they're sweating. It's 6 a.m. in the morning, and this guy comes up to my husband. He was like, "Hey, here you and your wife are trying to find a gestational carrier." And he was like, "Yeah." It's like, "What's a T?"
Yeah, right.
The 2 guys are talking about how, well, my wife really wants to be a surrogate. And I was curious if you want to talk, you want to like meet for dinner, you want to work this out. And so these two guys,
I love it,
are literally talking about how my husband can how we can knock up his wife,
Yeah.
This is great. Like, and really it's not like it's our bun, just another oven. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing how like these two guys like literally handled this surrogacy.
Right. As they're like doing like powerlifting.
As they're powerlifting. Hey, let's do this together.
I love it.
Yeah. And that went by fast. It was so fast, and it was amazing. And again, it's hard because you go through, I'm ripping off Band-Aids left to right, emotionally, because like I was just starting to heal with things. Yeah. But we had another bite at an apple that no one even gets to see an apple to begin with. And that is not lost on me.
Yeah, completely.
We didn't know how we were going to pay for it.
Right. So how many embryos did you have at this point from your last?
We had 3 genetically tested perfect blastocysts.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you found this surrogate through the workout group.
Yep.
And then it's all happening. So did you transfer the one and it worked?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure did, easily. And so we all did, and it was fun because she's got a big family. They have 4 kids. And so it was really interesting for her children to kind of see the sacrifices she's doing for another family. And it was interesting for our daughter to see, in real time how a surrogacy works. Mm-hmm. And so it was such an interesting thing for the children involved, because they really got to see what a beautiful gift it was. And she was very supportive. And so it's kind of interesting because both gestational carriers kind of tie in here in just a second, but the birth, still hard, still awful. Right. It was so difficult watching her go through that because she wanted to do natural birth.
Okay. And
that was really hard to kind of, witness and move through. And then she had some complications afterwards that she had to kind of contend with. We actually left the hospital before she did, which was a little tough. But it's interesting because there's so many people who came, and, we made meals for her family, and then, they're making meals for us. And it was just such a neat community effort to see everybody support. But our gestational carrier from our first daughter, she had just carried another surrogacy. Mm-hmm. And that's why she didn't carry her first daughter. And, our second daughter. And she was pumping for her IP. And so even though I was inducing lactation, she literally said, "Hey, do you have a deep freezer?" And I was like, "No, I don't." She's like, "Okay, hang on." She came by and delivered a full deep freezer filled with donated breast milk from her.
Oh, wow.
So one of our gestational carriers gave birth while the other one helped supplement what I couldn't provide while breastfeeding.
Oh my God. I love that.
Women are fucking amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Candace. Candace, you are awesome. Thank you so much for going into so much detail. On another note, I just wanted to remind you guys that fertilityrally.com is my other business that I co-founded with Blair Nelson of Fab Fertility. We have giftable memberships. So I'm not sure if everybody knew about that, but we have 3-month, 6-month, and 1-year memberships that you can give to somebody, a loved one or a friend who is going through the struggles of infertility. So holidays are coming up. We think it's a perfect gift. Go to fertilityrally.com for more info, or you can follow us on Instagram at fertilityrally. And, we are a small business. We really appreciate the word of mouth. So if anybody needs some support, tell them about Fertility Rally. All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you next time.